Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome back to another edition of Kopi Chats with me, your host Bailin. I know I've been away for over a week now. My PC was out of order, but it's back just in time as we delve into the biggest news of the year. Dare I say it. Twitter is acquired by Tesla CEO Elon Musk, the greatest African American in history. I hope I don't get cancelled for saying that. He is originally from South Africa, so it is technically correct that he is African American. So don't be mad at me for saying that. Kyoto News reports Elon Musk will acquire Twitter for about $44 billion. $44 billion. And he's remarked that free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated. So, in the past, yes, the social media giant has banned users who are believed to be spreading dangerous falsehoods or inciting violence, including former President Donald Trump. So, let me dive right into it. So we offered a really good price. I think it was said to be like something like 30% more than the price of the company when he made his offer. So all Twitter shareholders probably get a significant payout, and then the company will be taken private, so it won't be publicly traded anymore. And as we dive into this topic, let me tell you, did you know that, you probably didn't know this, but this saga has been 5 years in the making. Let me show you. See here, Mr. Dave Smith, host and producer of a show called The Refresh, formerly from Business Insider. And what does he say? Oh, in 2017, he replied to Elon Musk saying, "I love Twitter." Replied saying, "You should buy it then." He asked, "How much is it?" And here we are, 5 years later. It's done. Done deal. Whew, great job. Good job, Elon, and good job, Dave. So I found that hilarious. And Dave remarks, "This exchange continues to haunt me." Yes, Dave, please be careful with your replies to Elon Musk in the future. I saw really nice and an interesting comment on the issue so far. Mr. David Sachs, you can see here, venture capitalist. So he knows all about investments and acquisitions. So he remarked that there are certain things that must have been true if Twitter's board is ready to accept Elon Musk's offer. Now this was tweeted about a day ago, right? So David said, number one, they must have done a soft market check and there were no other bidders, which to me makes very total sense, right? Twitter at any point of time in this time of flux, all the major shareholders would be aware that there's a bid coming in from Elon Musk, and if they happen to hold any amount of shares in Twitter, board would talk to them saying, "Hey, you've held our shares for a long time. I know we trust you. We know you see value in us. Would you like to increase your stake, right? Would you like to possibly acquire the company outright?" Because, maybe they just didn't want to be acquired by Elon Musk. Why would you, right? Maybe they were not very sold on the idea because it seemed that there was no great enthusiasm for it. There's plenty of tweets, if you just look for it, under the hashtag RIP Twitter, where people talk about how upset they are about the acquisition, and also plenty of alleged comments from employees of Twitter saying that they're extremely unhappy with the acquisition. So, yes, certainly the board must have done a soft check, talked to existing shareholders. They could have reached out, through their network, right? They have Jack Dorsey, one of the most well-connected men in Silicon Valley. Surely they would have been able to just, make a quick check. Any other interested parties? And certainly there were no other bidders. Jack was on board, Jack Dorsey here, former CEO, and he continues to hold a fairly large stake. I think single-digit percentage, but pretty large. What must have been like something like 5%? I forget the exact number. So he must have been on board because he is extremely influential, right? He sits on the board, and as the single largest shareholder, his voice will carry a lot of weight, and surely he must have been on board in order for it to go through. And number three, there was a pressure campaign that was, of course, Elon Musk was conducting a lot of his business out in the open, letting everybody know his bid, publishing the letters so that everyone would know what was happening, and that would lead to pressure on the board, the company board of Twitter, to accept the offer, to make something happen, to give, maximum shareholder value. Right? And it worked, which is where we are today. David goes on to say a little bit more. He says that, there were, over the past few quarters, earnings per share targets were missed by a lot. So the position of the board to resist it might have been a little weaker. To say like, oh, you haven't been delivering very much. Here's an opportunity to cash out, even though the company has been bleeding money for several quarters. Why not take it, right? Now, his last comment is also pretty good. He remarks that the reason that 1 to 4 above almost certainly must be true is that the poison pill is a very robust defense, and we're still in the relatively early stages of a takeover. The board could have kept fighting, but they did not do it. So if you don't recall what a poison pill is, or you may not know it, it's quite esoteric. So a company can set its own rules for itself internally, and they can have a rule that says if any party buys up our shares, they was talking about 15%. If any party owns more than 15% or hits the threshold of 15% in Twitter, then Twitter, the company, will offer all other shareholders the option to buy more shares of Twitter at a discount, or maybe the same price, relative to the person who bought the 15%. What this will do is that it will make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for the person looking to acquire the company to actually get hold of it. Right? So that's the poison pill. And it's a very robust defense, according to Mr. Sachs. But it was never implemented. And as these things go, we would expect a corporate takeover to drag on for many weeks, even months. It could go on for years, But this was all conducted really quick. Like these things go, this is like lightning fast. So according to Mr. Sachs, the board did not have the stomach to fight this battle. And I can see why, he would say that. I would tend to agree with him. Yeah. And let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about, would Elon Musk be able to turn this company around? Because whatever you think of Twitter, like maybe you don't use Twitter. I do. Twitter hasn't been meeting its targets, and its stock price has not really gone anywhere near the levels of what Facebook had. I think Facebook's 44 billion. I think is not that much for Twitter. Facebook must be worth like hundreds of billions. I think 100 billion easily, probably. So it is perhaps a little surprising that one of the largest social networks in the world, and a very unique one that's focused on text and ideas and what Elon Musk calls the town square of the world, is going for what looks like a bargain basement price. So is this company in decline, right? Well, let me put this in context. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So a user of Twitter called Mr. Gary Black, fund manager, he shared a chart showing that Tesla had a big boost in orders right after the Super Bowl, the day of the Super Bowl, which is the #1 sporting event in the United States on the whole calendar every year. So oddly enough, Tesla does not spend a single cent on advertising. So how did they possibly get, how could they possibly get any kind of benefit from the Super Bowl? Well, according to Elon Musk replied this, cryptic tweet. $1 trillion valuation and $0 advertising spend. How does he do it? Well, clearly, I think if you are a follower of Elon Musk, it's not no secret. He tweets regularly and effectively. His companies, whether Tesla or SpaceX, release effective videos, touting their successes. Newest model, he has a nice, when Tesla released their Cybertruck, which is a futuristic looking like SUV, it was all over the internet. There were memes, of it all over the place. You might even argue that memes are Tesla's marketing channel, one of Tesla's marketing channels. If you browse, the Elon Musk timeline, you'll frequently see a lot of memes, and apparently that works. I mean, not how many CEOs can you think of, major CEOs in the world, in your country or from the United States, anywhere, who tweet and successfully bring a lot of attention to their company. It's a very unique and rare skill set. And he brings it to the table, and he saves himself, saves the company a whole lot of money. So with that kind of talent, in this particular thing, which is to market something, to generate interest in it, it feels like this would transfer, from something he does for Tesla to something he does for Twitter. So I'd say that it looks good. It looks good. Now, one of the things that Twitter has been accused of, and I don't know if you're aware of this, famous journalist, Mr. Glenn Greenwald, says, replies to the White House press secretary. So press secretary for President Joe Biden was saying that President Joe Biden has been concerned about the power of large social media platforms, the power they have over our everyday lives, and has long argued that tech platforms must be held accountable for the harms they cause. To which Mr. Glenn Greenwald, who is, award-winning journalist, he broke the Edward Snowden story. He met up with Edward Snowden in Hong Kong, wrote story after story after story, revealing the illegal things being done by the intelligence agencies in the United States. Brave man and successful journalist, very credible. And he asked to the White House press secretary, does the president's concern include, when Facebook and Twitter censored reporting on Joe Biden's activities in China and Ukraine based on the CIA lie that it was Russian disinformation. So if you have heard, or you may not have heard, that Joe Biden has activities in China and Ukraine, at least not Joe Biden himself personally, but his son, Hunter Biden, has had business dealings with Chinese companies and Ukrainian companies. And this was proven, but censored. So on Twitter, on Facebook, you're not allowed to talk about it, you're not allowed to share the links to these stories, you're not allowed to mention it, or it will be tagged as disinformation, it will be blocked from spreading. So Glenn Greenwald asks, where was this concern, when the censorship was all friendly for Mr. Joe Biden, at the time, Mr. Joe Biden, not President Joe Biden? Well, obviously, it was in his favor, right? So, this is the kind of thing that has been going on. It has been going on, and which, all of a sudden, President Joe Biden and Press Secretary Jen Psaki are very concerned about this, saying, oh yeah, we're very, very concerned. It's always been the case. Yeah, we got to control these horrible, horrible tech platforms. Too much power. In fact, let me take it a little bit further. So, one of the world's most famous investors, all around intelligent man, Mr. Paul Graham, he's founder of the world's most famous startup accelerator program called the Y Combinator program. And he remarks that he read a Twitter thread from a certain man named Yishan, used to work for Reddit, one of the early guys at Reddit. So very influential in tech world. So he thinks that Elon is in for a world of pain, or at least for a type of pain that is much nastier than a hard engineering problem. Building a rocket, it's easy compared to dealing with humans. you know, and all their foibles and frustrations and biases, you know, and anger. And he compounds it by saying that there's far less upside as well. So what if you successfully deal with this problem? So your users will be less angry, but it will take so much of your effort. And what do you have to show for it, right? Do they spend more money? Does it make the world a better place? Maybe, you know, it's hard to quantify. So, but a hard engineering problem, if you solve a hard engineering problem, you may get to Mars. And that's a very clear benefit. So, that's his take. Now, where he goes on, where I think he's mistaken, referring to Mr. Yishan, you know, from Reddit formerly, he's mistaken in his claim that the left and the right, meaning politically the left and the right, both want to ban each other equally. So there's this thought out there in the open that, you know, those Democrats in the United States and Republicans as well, they want to ban each other equally. Now, Mr. Graham, extremely smart guy, he says, among the elite and within Twitter specifically, there is much more inclination to ban the right. And that is something that you don't normally hear people say out loud. But Mr. Graham, he's a person capable of saying things that a normal person would not say. He's, you know, way smarter than me and way more successful. And he would say things that, you know, you wouldn't expect a normal person to say. And this feels like something that you and I may not normally encounter, you know, just reading regular old news. But he would, right? He would be the kind of guy who have somebody who would tell him how the Twitter algorithm works, how the Facebook algorithm works. He would know when technology, you know, people are using technology to manipulate him, right? And he says, he goes on, I say this as somebody whose political views probably end up about 80% toward the left. So he spent millions over the past several elections supporting Democrats. So what a world we live in that Paul Graham he spent millions of dollars supporting Democrats. And he can say that, yeah, actually, you know what? There's probably more inclination by Democrats to ban Republicans. And that's what we see with banning of Donald Trump. Where else in the world have we seen, you know, a country's, you know, like leader banned from social media for the crime of what exactly, right? He goes on a little bit more, and this is a very good read. If you're interested, I'll put it in the show notes, so check it out down below. Yes, see, he goes on, tech companies in general, and Twitter especially, lean to the left. Imagine walking around Twitter pre-COVID. You find plenty of openly, you know, very, very left-leaning people. How many openly right-leaning people you find? I don't think you find any, and I think he's right. So this is the situation that Elon Musk is confronted with. He acquired a company. He's a person in favor of free speech. You know, he sees Twitter as a town hall of the world, and this town hall has been taken over by, you know, politically one side of the town hall. Like all the people on one side of the hall are really successfully crushing, you know, and suppressing opinions from the other side. And it's just not very good. You know, it's not good for the people being crushed, but neither is it for the group. Is it good for the group as a whole? Because you ought to have this free exchange of ideas to get at the best ideas. And that is what we're seeing here. And that Paul Graham has now, you know, articulated a big part of the problem. And Elon Musk, so let's get into a little bit of what Elon is saying himself. He has already made a enormous, terrifically huge promise of, if our Twitter bid succeeds, we will defeat the spam bots or dying trying. So spam bots are a huge problem in all kinds of social media. Facebook, and early on in Facebook, and on Twitter especially, they post, you know, automated messages that don't really sound, you know, mean very much, but they overwhelm. So they can overwhelm the algorithm. It can trick the algorithm into thinking that certain topics are trending. You know, you can manipulate people to think that You can manipulate the things that they see by, if you see one tweet and all the replies are, in favor or against it, it makes you think that there's more support for this than there really is. And then if if this happens in many, many places at once, it can lead to, manipulation of what's trending on Twitter. So that's a huge deal, right? Because what happens? Well, this leads exactly into what some call election manipulation, right? Disinformation. So you wouldn't want to make it too easy for any party, to feed you false, information about the pandemic or about elections or about, like sensitive topics in your country. You wouldn't want that. So it is a worthwhile goal to stop spam bots, right? To defeat them. And I think the rest of it's hyperbole, but that's entertaining and we all like it. And the other thing is to be authenticate all real humans. So authentication right now, you may know in Twitter, comes in the form of this little check mark over here. And you need to submit some documents to verify who you are. Now, so far it's been limited to people who are considered noteworthy. So it's kind of a status symbol. I'm a noteworthy person on the internet. But the drawback to that is plenty of people who deserve verification, arguably, right, deserve verification, have not been able to get it, which is a shame, and maybe also skews or distorts what is considered credible, because it could be that you deny verification to some people you don't like, and as we already know, is that Twitter heavily favors one side politically, so you would imagine that the other side would have a much more difficult time, again, batting Donald Trump, right? So it is very clear that is the case. Now, has Twitter been, would you like to see, perhaps you'd like to see a little bit more evidence that Twitter's been really taking sides on issues that maybe they shouldn't? Well, yes, of course. Here you go, for instance. Twitter says it will no longer allow advertisers who deny the scientific consensus on climate change. So I think everybody in the world would agree that the climate is changing. But then subsequent to that, I think we may not totally agree, right? There might be some who say it's an urgent life or death crisis that requires immediate attention. And there may be those who think that maybe it's not that urgent. Maybe we can deal with it on a 20-year time scale. So there will be some grades, some variation in how seriously we treat it and how urgent we view it. Now, Twitter says no longer allow advertisers who deny scientific consensus. So would that mean that you can't talk about it, can't deny climate change totally? Or is it, you can't say that it's not serious and severe? It's not clear. But you know what it's doing? Then you can't discuss it freely, right? You can't discuss it freely. That's obviously the case. And does that benefit anyone by not discussing it freely? You might say, oh, yeah, well, this prevents the spread of disinformation. But then how would we have the opportunity to know what's wrong with the disinformation if we don't have a chance to see the tweet and then see people debunking what's wrong with it? Now, on Twitter, it's very common that you'd see a tweet, and then if the replies to it are good enough, you get something called a ratio, which is a very mathematical word, for something that is actually highly emotional, which is that the reply is so much better at debunking or undermining the original tweet that it gets much more likes and retweets compared to the original, and that would be called ratioing the tweet. And you would not have that then, because you would just deny the people with the wrong opinions from speaking up in the first place. But then nobody learns anything that way. Okay, maybe if you disagree with that, you're free to disagree, because I tend to come down on the side of free speech as well. I think you should be totally free to disagree. I respect your right to disagree, so long as you respect my right to disagree as well. right? And that's how we make progress. But anyway, let's not get stuck on this. There's more. I also went to look up very briefly, what has Elon Musk said on, regulations and laws, and it seems that he has this is what he says. He responding to the question, when you start the first Mars colony, what documents recommend using to establish a governing system, right? Blah 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 blah. Lots of examples, and Elon Musk goes, direct democracy by the people. Direct democracy, if you don't, it requires a little bit of explanation. That is, rather than in a lot of countries you elect representatives, and those people go into what's called a parliament, and they would do the work of the people who elected them. So you vote for them, and they go form the laws, write the laws, decide on what to spend money on, what the country's money will be spent on, and so on. Direct democracy, on the other hand, just means that, everybody gets to vote on the issues, right? Everybody gets to vote on the issues. So rather than you electing a representative to go and do the work for you, you just do it yourself, right? And this is technically possible. Now, this was done before in ancient Greek societies, direct democracy, and everybody would come to the I don't know what they had back then, the square or something. They would have these open places where the adult men meet, and then they vote directly, they discuss. I'm not saying that only adult males should go. I'm saying that that's what the ancient Greeks did. Of course, for our time and place, we would include women as well, right? So direct democracy, that's what he means. And he goes on, laws must be short as there's trickery in length. So you can get a feel for the kind of way that the kind of philosophy he would bring to Twitter, I guess. Laws must be short as there's trickery in length, right? If it's too detailed, too long, you can have too many, loopholes. There can be leakage, of things that you miss. If you try to list down everything, rather than just say, you shall not do this, or you must do this, well, then if you list down everything, you're prone to missing out edge cases and so on. There should be automatic expiration of rules to prevent death by bureaucracy. See, here's some really nice ideas, and this is one of them: automatic expiration of rules to prevent death by bureaucracy. Certainly, that's the case, right? Should you have rules that stick around permanently? Maybe in some cases you would, such as don't kill people, right? Killing will be punishable by death, unless it's justified. Okay, that you could stick with it forever. Then there could be times when you say, there's been a natural disaster and we need to raise everybody's taxes. So rather than say, we just raise your taxes permanently, we'll say, okay, anytime we're going to do any kind of change, say, okay, you need to increase by a percentage point. But, we'll always put a expiration date on it. So it will be valid for 2 years, okay? Because that's how long it'll take to repair the damage. Okay, fair enough. Oh, no, 2 years of that taxes, and then the project will finish by the 3rd year, or something like that, right? Any rule can be removed by 40% of people to overcome inertia. So any rule that you don't like, if you get 40% of people to vote directly and say, I don't like it, you can remove it. And that sounds like a really forgiving and really robust system, because 40% is a lot. And asking if you can get 40% of people, motivated enough, upset enough, who have strong enough opposition in their hearts to actually vote on something, maybe it deserves to go, right? Maybe you don't need 50%. Maybe 50% is asking too much because it's just on the edge of asking a majority. But if you have a substantial minority that's, badly angered and, hurt by an existing rule, maybe 40% should be the threshold, right? It ends with freedom. And that sounds about right to me, right? Direct democracy, short rules with a time limit, and then removable rules by, a large minority. So you can see how you might take some of this to Twitter. And there's been talk about changing the algorithm of Twitter, because the algorithm, as with all social media, it's all secret and hidden, and you don't get to see it at all. And there's been talk that Elon Musk might actually reveal the algorithm so that everybody can see it. It can be worked on, and nobody has to feel disadvantaged because maybe there's some secret shenanigans going on. You could remove that problem by revealing the algorithm. And there has been discussion about that. I've seen it being discussed about making the algorithm open source. Well, what do we mean by making it, let's just delve into that a little bit, right? So you have this algorithm. Maybe the algorithm says something like, show the most recent tweets. Unless there's an older tweet, from over 24 hours ago with that was trending, but the user did not see it. So if I didn't see a tweet from over 24 hours ago, normally it's just discarded. But if it was trending, okay, then we'll prioritize it and move it up the queue. So you'll always see, what's recent and with what's trending. So that could be one algorithm. And you could have it another way, which is that I don't care, I just want recent. So it's always going to be recent. Then another way you could have it, and which is actually in place on Twitter now, is that they'll not only show you what's recent and maybe what's trending. Yeah, they also show you things from people you don't follow. All right, so that's also trending. So trending could be trending from the people you follow, or just trending in general, right? In the place you live. So where I'm in Singapore, so maybe they'll show me things that are trending in Singapore, right? Maybe that's interesting. I may not have followed the people to see the tweet, but if it's trending, maybe I'll be interested. So one way that this could be done, this could be improved, would be that, why didn't you let me choose, right? You could let me choose, do I want to see tweets only from people I follow? Or do I want to see it, even up to and including the people around me? So these are some of the discussions that are worth having and will be had moving forward. And probably these algorithms will be revealed. Users may actually get a choice to pick and choose what they like. And I think sounds like a worthwhile improvement again. Anytime that you give people more choice, it's probably going to lead to a better outcome, right? Okay. Jack Dorsey has also commented on this about half a day ago. So he said, I love Twitter. Twitter is the closest thing we have to a global consciousness. And if you think about it, that is exactly true. Is Facebook anything like that? No, because, Facebook is kind of like you form a nice little network with the friends you're close to. You can follow public figures, but they don't really interact that much, But on Twitter, it's all interaction. It's all short messages talking to each other, right? So in a way, if you have everyone talking to each other freely, is that not some kind of like a hive mind consciousness? Well, without giving up your sense of self, of course. But yes. He goes on, the idea and service is all that matters to me, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect both. Twitter as a company has always been my sole issue and my biggest regret. It has been owned by Wall Street and the ad model. Taking it back from Wall Street is the correct first step. And that is a little bit of regret and a little sadness from Jack Dorsey. I think if you've been using Twitter, you've seen that this is the effect of the influence of Wall Street and the ad model. Twitter has been, pushing ads, and so a consequence of focusing on ads has been that you need to avoid things that are too controversial, because advertisers don't want to be associated with things that are, for instance, adult theme, not family friendly, politically too sensitive, too violent, maybe too inappropriate, too sexual, too strange, too different from the mainstream, different from what's commonly accepted. And that is a consequence, and that's inevitable, which is why, free-to-air TV has always been rather bland, and we have censors. Some of it is, the government exerting control, and some other part of it is just advertisers don't want to have their ads appear on a show about, strange people who live a very unusual life. Maybe they think that it's too much, like people who are selling family-friendly, family products. Children's toys don't want to have their ads run in a show about, I don't know, heavy metal music or something, right? So that's totally makes sense. But that influence has, really gone entirely into the core of Twitter, and so much so that, as we know, Jack Dorsey left the company that he built. It was his regret, he says here. He couldn't fix it. And he says taking back from Wall Street is correct first step, which totally makes sense. He says, in principle, I don't believe anyone should own or run Twitter. It wants to be a public good at a protocol level, not a company. This feels like a very heartfelt message. It wants to be a public good at a protocol level, not a company. A protocol, so most of you, who watch my videos probably already know this. For the minority who don't know, I'll just delve very briefly what we mean by protocol here. Protocol is something like the hypertext, HTTP. HTTP, you may have heard of it. It's in your web browser. That is the protocol over which we, communicate for web pages. Web pages all have to follow that protocol. How it's sent, how it's received, how the information must be formatted so that it can be displayed in the browser. All of that. That's protocol. Nobody owns it. There's no company that manages HTTP. It is a protocol. And Twitter has its own protocol, right? Twitter has its own protocol. When we tweet, we send a text, with or without images. It is received by Twitter servers, and then when people visit the website or they open in the app, the tweets that you send are received. They are processed in a certain way, ordered in a certain way, and that is protocol. And Twitter, the Twitter protocol, according to Jack, it wants, it almost like it wants to be a public good, because email is not a protocol. It just needs to be out there for everyone to use, right? Rather than be a company. To Jack Dorsey, it's not optimal. There should be, everybody should be able to use this Twitter protocol. Everybody should be able to have access to it to speak freely. That's what he wants. Solving for the problem of it being a company, however, Elon is a singular solution I trust. I trust his mission to extend the light of consciousness. And that is something beautiful. Beautiful to say. And shows his deep confidence in Elon Musk on this. And it doesn't feel like Jack Dorsey is somebody, making a very stiff, corporate announcement saying, I truly trust Elon, he's the man to take the company forward. No, he's talking about something very deep and personal to him. That Twitter is his biggest regret. He's talking about how it's been owned by Wall Street. Now, you don't say these things in a standard, corporate press release. And so when Jack Dorsey goes on and ends, his tweet thread saying that, it's not ended yet, but there's a little bit more. And you can see it here. I'll just read it very briefly. Elon's goal of creating a platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is the right one. This is also Parag Agrawal's goal, that is the current CEO of Twitter, and that's why I chose him to replace me, right? Thank you both for getting company out of an impossible situation. This is the right path. I believe it with all my heart. I'm so happy Twitter will continue to serve the public conversation around the world and into the stars, to Mars at least. And that day will be a cool day when, Twitter, you can tweet to people from Mars and they can tweet right back. That would be quite an amazing time. So, this is beautiful, and I felt that this needed to be said. This is from a former CEO of Twitter and a man, the founder. Nobody cares more about Twitter than Jack Dorsey, I believe. And it seems like at least Elon Musk has his vote of confidence. All right, moving on. On Reuters though, coming right back to reality, human rights groups including ACLU and Amnesty International raised concerns about hate speech on Twitter and the power that Elon Musk would have after this acquisition. Elon Musk is a self-described free speech absolutist. He believes in free speech without restrictions. And can we have that? That is the question. So, what is it? If I can delve into this slightly. So I guess the suggestion here is that having free speech on Twitter would lead to the proliferation of hate speech. That evil racists, sexists will have their way to insult people, to spread lies, to create fear and hatred and sow discord, as they say. Yeah, I guess that's possible. I think it remains to be seen how Elon Musk will solve that problem. Will this problem exist? Absolutely. Does it exist today? Already it exists today, right? It already exists today. It exists on every social media network. None of them are exempt. So is it any special? Is it anything special that Elon Musk and Twitter have to deal with? Is there some reason that ACLU and Amnesty International need to raise the alarm, so to speak? I don't know. Maybe they don't like Elon Musk. Maybe, as Paul Graham has rightly pointed out, Twitter and many left-leaning groups have had a great deal of success holding down the right-leaning groups, and maybe they don't like that. They cannot do it now. Maybe they won't be able to do it in the future. I don't know if that's wrong. I mean, everything I just said, I think could be true. It could be part of the reason. It doesn't have to be the only one. Things happen in the world for multiple reasons. But it feels like it could be part of the truth, right? The ACLU and Amnesty International. Yeah. Now, that leads us to an even more interesting question. Now, this part is still, plain, boring. Of course, there's hate speech. There's hate speech on every social network, right? The fact that ACLU and Amnesty International raise it, as some unique thing doesn't make it so, right? But there is something pretty unique here in the situation of Twitter. And here it is. We look here at a tweet from Mr. Jeff Bezos, founder and CEO of Amazon. So he found a tweet from a man named Mike Forsyth saying, Tesla's second biggest market in 2021 was China. Chinese battery makers are major suppliers for Tesla. After 2009, when China banned Twitter, the government there had almost no leverage over Twitter. That may have just changed. And Jeff Bezos decided, that is really interesting. Did the Chinese government just gain a little bit of leverage over the town square? Clearly he's familiar with Elon Musk's description of Twitter as the town square. He says, my own answer to this question is probably not. The more likely outcome in this regard is complexity in China for Tesla, rather than censorship at Twitter. And let's see. But we'll see. Musk is extremely good at navigating this kind of complexity. How do we think about this? Jeff Bezos says the more likely outcome is complexity in China for Tesla rather than censorship at Twitter. So his hunch is that Musk will not give in to China's request for censorship, or maybe more or less, like less censorship for Chinese media, for instance, or more censorship for non-Chinese media. Either way is unlikely to happen, according to Jeff Bezos. He says the more likely outcome is complexity in China for Tesla, which I think makes perfect sense. Because Tesla already has a factory in Shanghai, and as you know here, it says that China's second biggest market for Tesla. So lots of Tesla being sold, lots of Teslas being made. If the Chinese government is unhappy with Tesla, if Elon Musk or Twitter, the thing that they can reach out to most easily is Tesla. Now, this is an idea that's gaining some traction. Now, let me show you what I mean. There's an article here on The Guardian by Mareike Alberg. Sorry, maybe not written by her, but she tweets, a quick reality check for all the people out there who think Elon Musk wouldn't bend over backwards to accommodate CCP censorship requests on Twitter. So she disagrees with Mr. Jeff Bezos. Okay, there's more. There's a Mr. Bill Birtles, who works for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. He asked, question is, how does the free speech mantra apply to state-affiliated accounts? Just this week, some Chinese state media figures were whinging that Twitter doesn't give them the free rein they enjoy in China's censored ideas market. And Elon has a Tesla factory in Shanghai, right? So you can see that this idea is making the rounds. Here also, Miss Melissa Chan, writer for the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos' Washington Post. So she jumps on the same bandwagon as her boss, saying Elon Musk has a Tesla factory in China and wants to sell more cars there. What happens if Beijing leans on him about Uyghurs or Hong Kong, or about Chinese disinformation bots on Twitter? If Elon thinks he's because he's the world's richest man, he can tell China to buzz off. He'll find out how efficiently the Chinese state can gobble up Tesla's Shanghai factory. So you can see here that this is the last topic I have on this. The last talking point on the topic of Twitter and Elon Musk. But this is perhaps the most interesting one. So it's true, it's a tough situation. Chinese government's very powerful, and Tesla's already doing business in China. They are known to put pressure on organizations, on companies that they want to influence, and they have done that successfully in some cases. What would happen, right? So what does China want? Let's just think for a moment. What does China want? So Mr. Bill Birtles was saying here that some Chinese state media figures were complaining that they don't get to say everything that they want on Twitter. It's too restrictive. So it seems that you could say, more simply put, just for simplicity's sake, so what China wants would be a free rein on Twitter, to say whatever they want to say. Well, guess what? Elon Musk is a free speech absolutist. We just saw that the ACLU and Amnesty International were worried that Mr. Musk would be too much, too forgiving in pursuit of free speech. So you can't get into trouble on both sides in this case. You can't have, you can't get into trouble with the Amnesty International by allowing hate groups to flourish, and also get into trouble with China by not allowing their media to say what they want. Right? Those two particular problems exist on opposite ends of a spectrum. You can go one way, which is to censor, and stop the Chinese media from saying what they want. And that's one direction you go. But that's not the same direction. It's a totally different direction to say, oh, you know what, everybody can say whatever they want, and even hate groups can say what they want. So they're very different paths. Now, according to Mr. Jeff Bezos, more likely is that you probably get more in trouble with the Tesla will probably will be the source of more problems rather than Twitter. I take that to mean that, well, Twitter, more likely there will be minimal censorship. That because Mr. Elon Musk is already, he's been publicly in favor of more free speech, so there's a high chance that you will get more free speech, and Chinese media will probably get to say as much as they can now, or perhaps a little more. So, and what would the Chinese government want? Well, if they want to influence Twitter, it would certainly be so that they can say more nice things about China and more bad things about their opponents, right? Their rivals. And if Musk is already inclined to be more permissive, more open on that, then is that really a problem? Not super likely, but they can go too far. They can go too far in wanting, favorable treatment for their media. But here's the math, I think, the balance that we have to consider. So they're likely to get a lot of allowance to say what they want. And maybe they want even more, possible. And what the stick that they hold, say that I'll punish Tesla if you don't give me what I want on Twitter, right? So that's the equation here. I'll punish Tesla if you don't give me what I want here. Now, I don't think that will turn out very well, and here's why. Who's the most famous businessman in the world right now? Elon Musk. Everybody's talking about Elon Musk. It's all over, and soon he will be in charge of Twitter. And if he's correct, as some people believe he is, and Twitter is the town square of the world where people talk about everything, talk about business, talk about technology, talk about politics, and everything in between. What happens if you punish the business of the man who owns the world's town square? Well, people will hear about it, right? Who's going to stop him? Elon Musk will tweet about it. If the Chinese government conspicuously, clearly punishes Tesla for something on Twitter unfairly, guess what? Everybody will hear about it, right? And you may think, oh, who cares? The Chinese government will take away your Tesla factory, right? Like one of these, all of these writers are saying, yeah, Elon has a Tesla factory in Shanghai. The Chinese state can gobble up that Tesla Shanghai factory. Yes, but you know what they don't do? They don't get to the consequences. The Chinese government takes away the Tesla Shanghai factory or does something to it, right? What will happen? Well, the whole world will know. And what will happen then? Every single business person in the whole world will know that the Chinese government has punished Tesla for some possibly, some bullshit reason. And do you think that the Chinese economy could survive something like that? Now, how much fear do you think it would take for non-Chinese companies to change their mind about investing in China? So there are new companies popping up all the time, right? Of varying sizes, varying successes. A lot of people want to do manufacturing in China. Tesla does manufacturing in China. And if you punish, the biggest, most visible manufacturing company in China, you punish the biggest one. Well, what does it tell everybody else? Well, you're not as big as Tesla. If you think that you can't be punished, well, Tesla just got punished. Who are you, right? So, wouldn't you rather put your factory somewhere else? I know I would. So, it seems like, yeah, technically the Chinese government could punish Tesla, but they might just, and it's not exaggeration, maybe they'll just blow up their own economy. There'll be nothing left, there'll be no foreign direct investment, no new factories, and whoever's currently, running a factory in China, do you presume that they want to expand, or do you want to do more business in China? Well, not as many as before, right? Once they know about what happened to Tesla. So, to win some, brownie points on Twitter for their media, China would have to blow up its own economy. Possible, right? So would they do it? Doubtful, because the Chinese government's been around for a long time, for many decades, and they've not shown themselves to be pretty cautious, and it wouldn't blow up their economy. They haven't done so yet. So it doesn't seem like you would blow up your economy. You have to get something at least of equal value, right? So you can blow up your economy. Maybe for 1 year, your economic growth projections in the garbage, in the toilet. And what you get in return? Some nice tweets on Twitter. You get to throw out some additional tweets. Is that worth it? It's not even close. So I don't know. I don't think that the commentators talking about the potential for harm to Tesla, I don't think they've considered, what the balance is here. Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's all I have. That's all my prepared material for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for watching. I always enjoy making these videos. I'm sorry that I took a hiatus over a week. I really had some problems with the PC. Had to change the motherboard and everything. But if you enjoyed it, as usual, smash the like button, like and subscribe. I'll be back to talk more about business, technology, politics, anything interesting going on in Southeast Asia, Asia. Typically, that's as far as I go. So, till the next time, have a great day, night, morning, afternoon, anytime. And I'll talk to you again really, really soon. Bye-bye.